I think so many of us are Olympians at discounting the positive that happens in our lives. And so in anything that happens, you've achieved something. Instead of saying, yes, that's amazing. Look at what you did. You did this. We say, but look at this.
This is Running for Real, the podcast for runners who know that for every runner's high, there are just as many lows. All those just missed PRs, easy runs that feel hard, injury blues, and more. Each week, we'll talk to running, health, and wellness experts about their highs, lows, and best advice to build our confidence. Running for Real is about being honest, being brave, and most of all, not feeling alone. And now here's our host, Tina Muir.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 195 of the Running for Real podcast. 195. That is crazy. We are closing in on 200. As I record this, I still don't know who my 200th guest is going to be, whether it's going to be some big blowout guest, if I can get any of them, the big ones I want to commit, that is, or if it's just going to be kind of a conversation between myself and someone else or someone in the community. I really haven't decided yet. But as this is one of the final episodes I am recording ahead of time, time's getting tight and I don't know what the future looks like, so we will find out nearer the time, but I promise you we will have some kind of big celebration when that happens. Now, last week we had Matt Fitzgerald on the show. Matt was interviewed by Sarah Crouch. That was one of the episodes that she did with him. A wonderful conversation between two friends. Really, I got to see for myself, or hear for myself, I should say, the benefits of just kind of that conversation that feels like you're overhearing two friends talking. It was a wonderful chat between them, and you got to hear all about Matt's experience up at Flagstaff when he went to train there with Naz Elite, and Sarah also lives in Flagstaff, so it was pretty cool to hear them talking about things and allowing us to feel like we were part of the conversation. Now today, this episode is a bit different. Now my guts wants to apologize to you, to anyone who this doesn't speak to. My initial temptation is to say, I'm sorry that this is not going to speak to you, but I'm not going to do that because this episode is all about not apologizing, about building your confidence, about believing in you are who you are. And so I'm not going to do it. I am proud of this episode. I'm proud to have this guest. I'm proud of this message. I heard her on another podcast and I was beyond inspired by what she was saying. It changed my entire outlook on the way I look at myself, and it's changed things drastically in my life. I find myself modifying things all the time because of what she said. She really is powerful and influential with her message. And I want us to be confident. I want you to feel good about yourself. I hope that comes across in this podcast, that the big thing I want to do is get you to get an actionable, a takeaway from every guest we have on, that I want it to relate to you, to resonate with you. And obviously I know not everyone is going to resonate with every person, but I want there to be something actionable that you can take from this, and building confidence and showing you how special you are, because I see it. Your loved ones see it. Everyone sees it except for you. And it crushes me when I see so many people who just don't see what's special about them, what it makes you beautiful. So today I'm going to get someone who is really good at kind of getting that message across about getting us to believe in ourselves. And I'm very excited to introduce you to Professor Maja. She has a PhD in sociology. She's an author, a TEDx speaker, and she is otherwise known as a confidence builder and apology hater. You are going to love her. I definitely did, and I'm just looking forward to hearing what you think of this episode afterwards. We're just going to take a moment to thank Tracksmith and Athletic Greens, and we'll be right to the episode. Thank you to Tracksmith for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Tracksmith is a Boston-based brand led by a group of runners who are committed to making classically stylish, cutting-edge apparel. They have one simple goal: craft the most considered products on the market for runners, dedicated to the personal pursuit of excellence. I've seen you guys out there, how much you're committing yourselves, and even now we have the heat in there. We don't know the situation with races this fall. There are so many things working against us right now, but those of you who are out there, even if it's not as much as you want to, but you're getting yourself out there, especially when you're not motivated to do so, when you're struggling with motivation, I am so inspired by you all. So thank you so much for being an inspiration to me, but also that you are who Tracksmith is speaking to. You're the people that they put so much hard work and effort into making these products for. Tracksmith only works with the finest materials, from merino wool in their training tops to a unique nylon knit that's sourced from the best Italian mills for their running shorts. All of their garments feature details that let you focus on what matters the most to you, which is getting your training in, doing the best that you can with the situation that you are in, and just crushing it as you already are. I have loved seeing you guys in your Tracksmith apparel that you have purchased because I recommended it. That means so much to me. It really is wonderful for me to see that you purchase something because I recommended it and you're enjoying it and loving it. And once again, I feel that relief that you're like, you love it too, because when I really commit to a brand, I believe in it. I do not take relationships and partnerships with brands lightly. I really cater to my morals and I think about these brands heavily before I decide to work with them. So it means a lot to me. Now, friends, if you've never purchased Tracksmith items before, you can get 15% off your first order by going to tracksmith.com/Tina Muir. That's tracksmith.com/TINAMUIR to get 15% off your order with code TINA. Or you can also go to tinamuir.com/Tracksmith and I will show you some of my favorite items that I have really been enjoying. Now, the Van Cortlandt shorts are another thing I haven't mentioned yet, which are these strike the ideal balance between race-ready function and just common good taste. They fall in at a 2.5-inch inseam, which is a nice sweet spot for most of us, and they're made from a lightweight and antimicrobial fabric. The shorts are a simple, modern take on a running classic. Now, my friends, I'm going to remind you one more time, go to tracksmith.com/Tina Muir, enter code TINA to get 15% off your first purchase. Professor Maja, I am so excited to welcome you to the Running for Real podcast. Thank you so much for giving me some time today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. And as I told you before we started recording, this is a running podcast. And you have informed me, actually, that you are a runner, although you didn't class yourself as a runner, which is the textbook thing that runners tend to do and think runners are only people who have run so fast or so far or done so much, which my listeners know that's not the case. Anyone who runs is a runner. But that being said, this is not going to focus on running for this episode. I like to sprinkle these episodes in. It's really important to help listeners to grow and think differently. And I'm excited to kind of dig into what you have found and just what your passion and life has become about. But I do want to start with running, as this is a running podcast. So, yeah, you mentioned to me before we started recording that you do run. Tell us a little bit about, some races that you've done, what it is that you like about running, because we know as runners, most non-runners do not understand why runners run. So tell us what it gives to you.
Clarity of mind. Clarity. Absolutely. It's the time when I am not listening to anything.
Oh,
I'm not
you
attached.
Totally silent? Okay,
yes,
good.
Totally silent. Purposely, for two reasons. One, safety. And two is that's my time to run through my ideas, thoughts, go over what worked well in a project that I was running, what didn't, go over some of the mistakes that I made, how I'm going to reframe my thinking on certain areas. So it's a time really for me to dig deep with my thoughts and to do that in nature and not be surrounded by noise. Right? So noise in my ears. Yeah.
That's so good. And that's, I think, actually what a lot of people resonate with. And it is, one of the beauties of running, that you have to actually do it to understand that. Because I know people often say to me, like, running's so boring. And I'm like, yeah, but you also, like you said, get to process things and think about things and work out problems that you're having, or just come back, as you said, with a clearer mind. So it's nice to hear you say that same thing. But you did mention you've done some races. So what races have you done?
I have. So I've done a variety of 5K, 10K, and I did, I think, 2 half marathons.
Okay.
I think my best time was 1:50.
Okay. Yeah.
So I don't know where that is. I think that's decent.
That is definitely decent. We don't really worry about time so much here. We just, unless someone is coming on as an Olympian, it's not really mentioned. It's more about getting out there and doing it. But for you to race, that must mean that in some capacity you enjoy that competition aspect, or was it someone else kind of pushing you into it with them?
Well, I do. I am competitive. I love that. But I also am married to an Ironman.
Okay.
So just years and years and years of going to all of his competitions, right? From the, what are they? Olympic distance, I forgot now all the distance, the half Ironman, the full Ironman. And so I eventually started getting into running. And I like the idea. I like the feeling. I like the mindset. I even like the physicality of the pain of pushing myself. Because it's very similar to confidence building in that you can't just wish to be a better runner. You can't just wish to not have injuries. You have to prepare and maintain that, right? So you have to stretch your body if you don't want things hurting.
Yeah, no, very true.
Right? So it's very similar. And so I also like to layer my mind with memories of, I don't want to say hardship, but of how I've conquered a hurdle. And so knowing what that feels like when I am 2 kilometers or 2 miles from the end of a race, and how I'm hurting. And then 1 mile comes and I'm hurting even more. And I'm thinking, just forget it. Just slow down. It doesn't matter. The time doesn't matter. Right. And then that other part of you is like, no, if you push yourself even further, what will happen? Right. And then that memory gets cemented. And then you realize, oh, I can push myself through discomfort.
Yes, for sure. And I think that, what we're about to move on to in a second about confidence building, I mean, that correlates so well with running in that, I found the more people have confidence within themselves as a person, the better they are able to do in their running, because in those dark moments, like you mentioned, 2 miles or 2 kilometers to go, that's when that little voice becomes so like loud in your ear. And if you don't have those kind of strategies to spin it and change the perspective, or you don't have the confidence in yourself that you can do this, that's when it really kind of takes you backwards and you end up kicking yourself for it. So that leads in nicely to actually why I wanted to bring you on the show. So this is a running podcast, but I heard the podcast episode you did with Ariel Garten on Untangle, and it was so powerful that I knew I had to get this message to my audience, especially as there's a lot of women listening, mostly women, but there are also some men who I know this will resonate with, having got to know some of them. So you having a PhD in sociology, you're an author, you're a TEDx speaker, which are your official accolades, but we're much more interested in the other parts of kind of your description of yourself, which is confidence builder and apology hater. What does that mean exactly?
So I graduated not really knowing where or what I was going to be doing. And then I attended an academic conference that completely and utterly changed my life. And I'll give you the quick version of it. And basically, I was listening to some of my mentors take the stage. We were at an all-week conference, and all they had to do was introduce themselves. And these were women at the pinnacle of their careers. I mean, so much education, so many articles among themselves that they had written in books and everything. And literally just take the microphone and introduce yourself. That's it. That's all that was required. And the first woman says, oh my gosh, like, I don't know what I could possibly add to this discussion. This is such a highly esteemed group of women. And I was like, oh, no, she did not just say that. She's the world expert. Why did she just dismiss her authority on such a public stage? And then I thought, okay, calm down, Maja. Maybe she was nervous. Maybe this is an anomaly. And then the second woman, she says, oh my gosh, same thing. I thought they sent the email to the wrong person. And I remember distinctly looking around thinking, did anybody else hear that? What is happening? Make it stop. And in that moment, I mean, just like that, it was a switch. I recognized that every time a woman took a microphone, at that week-long conference. Either an apologetic tone was sure to follow, or she questioned her own experience, minimized her own accomplishments. And yet I wasn't seeing that same tendency with men. And so what I saw on that stage with the most educated and accomplished women mirrored exactly what I was seeing with my young women in my undergraduate classrooms. And I thought, oh, okay, it's all of us. It really is all of us. And then alongside the broader structural systemic barriers of sexism and racism and ageism and homophobia and all of that, my gosh, we were also battling very real internal barriers of a lack of confidence, really passive communication styles, such as apologies or a deflection of praise. And I thought, okay, that's it. I must explore this. I must get to the bottom of this. And that's basically what I've been doing for the past 4 years.
And it's so interesting to hear you talk about. And I've heard Elizabeth Gilbert talking about this. I did a keynote in August last year. And before I did, I thankfully listened to this speech from Elizabeth Gilbert. And I remember thinking, like, why does it matter if you kind of say like, oh, I can't believe I'm here. Yeah. And despite even hearing that, I still did it at the beginning of my talk. And I couldn't stop myself. And, you know, as you said, it's so common for women to, and yeah, some men, but it's so common for women to, as you said, either use a tone that kind of shows that like, oh, you picked me. And if you're doing it as a leader, then what does that teach everyone else watching? And then also you said about deflecting praise. I mean, we do that so often, and it's something that just really isn't talked about. But so why do women, or why do we apologize so much? Like, and why is that a bad thing?
There are gender differences in how we apologize. So research shows that when both men and women deem an infraction to be apology worthy, they'll both apologize. So it's not that men are avoiding apologies, but they have a super high threshold of what they think is worthy enough of giving an apology. And women are, I mean, we're just down here. We have such a low threshold of what we think is worthy of an apology. So we're always on the lookout for, heaven forbid, I get misperceived or misunderstood, or, oh my goodness, I don't want them to think I'm not polite or kind. And so we preface our statements and our questions with an apology. And it's problematic because how we think we are perceived when we apologize, which is we think we're perceived as kind and polite, is the complete opposite of how we are in fact perceived when we apologize. And that's really what my research is showing. So apologies matter. I mean, they absolutely do. And I'm not saying never apologize, stop apologizing forever. I'm trying to bring attention to how often and for what reason we are apologizing so much. And how does it make you feel to throw out so many unnecessary apologies in a day? Are you uplifted? Do you feel empowered at the end of the day? Or are you simply exhausted and demoralized? And so what my participants are showing in my global study is deflated. That's the word that comes up again and again. I feel deflated after so many unnecessary apologies. And so if we use apologies in the right way, in terms of we're using them intermittently, we're using them in a genuine way, then it is empowering. Right? So one of the questions, for instance, that I ask my participants is, talk to me about how you feel when you've done something wrong and you had to really own up to it. You had to take responsibility and give a real apology. They feel good. They feel better. I mean, they're a little nervous. They feel perhaps a little bad that they did something that necessitated an apology, but they feel good afterwards, because there's some type of closure and they've taken responsibility. Now compare that to how you feel for all those unnecessary apologies that we throw out in a day. Sorry, is this a good time? Sorry, can I interrupt you? Sorry, could I just jump in here? Sorry, I didn't understand that. Sorry, could you repeat that? Sorry, my slides are out of order. And it's just ad nauseum. How do you feel? Completely differently.
So true. I think actually the best example, you talked about this in that podcast, was, and I do this all the time, like you get a text message. And I have to say, after listening to this, Ariel talked about it, but I felt the same way. After this conversation, to those of you listening, you are going to be so aware of this, because it just, everything you do, you see it. And the amount of times I've written something out and then deleted it because I'm like, there we go again. But the best example is, for me, a text message when someone texts you or calls you and you don't respond or you don't answer. And an hour or two later, you respond and you say, sorry, I was working. Or for me, I'd say, sorry, I was recording a podcast. Or sorry, I was giving my daughter a bath. And I'm like, what? Why am I apologizing for doing that? Like, but you know, since I've been I've been deleting it, but then I'm like, oh, I seem a bit cold, like not, you know, letting them know why I didn't answer. But as you said, it feels empowering. Whereas when you say sorry for the delay or sorry I didn't reply right away, it makes you feel like, oh, I've failed again. Like, oh, that's another person I've disappointed. So for me, that was the best example. And it's the one I found myself doing the most. But give us some other examples of not just sorry, but you also talked about the word just and I'm afraid to say, or, you know, some other words that we might use that also are the same thing without actually being the word sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of minimizing phrases that we use, that we preface our statements or our questions with. And so that could be anything like, I might be wrong on this.
Yes.
I have a little idea. I'm working on a side project. I'm not a total expert. I have minor suggestions. This is just a thought. I think maybe we should try this instead of saying, let's do this. Mm-hmm. I have an idea. I'd like to add, why don't we do this? I disagree. We fear coming across too strongly. We fear that we will be misperceived as aggressive or too brash or too cold. And it is an unfortunate tightrope that we walk. I mean, there's so many things to discuss here. So with the text messages, not only are we apologizing for stuff that we should not be apologizing for our daily working and living lives, but it's the expectation of immediacy with the smartphone, that we will respond immediately. Mm-hmm. But we don't often just say sorry. We say sorry, and then we provide an unnecessary and unneeded explanation or justification because we now need to prove to them that we were not lazy. Mm-hmm. We now need to prove that we were actually busy and doing work, and I hope they take me seriously, right? Mm-hmm. And it often then just keeps going on, and all of a sudden you've just listed what you've been doing for the past 2 hours, and you have to say, stop. Wait a minute, we don't have to do that.
And they don't care.
Yes, and they don't care. They don't care. Yeah. We can simply respond back with answering whatever their request was. And it's the same thing with emails. Oftentimes we send an email and then only to realize, oh, shoot, I made a mistake. There was a spelling error. I sent the wrong date. And then you send a follow-up. Sorry about that. I'm so sorry. I sent this wrong. No, send a follow-up email. There was an error. It's corrected. Mm-hmm. So we don't have to constantly be apologizing in email communications. You can simply say, thanks for catching that. It's been fixed now. Thanks for noticing the error. I've changed that. And it's such a problem that there's a Google Chrome plugin for this. Many people don't know about that. It was developed by two women who were also so annoyed by all the unnecessary stories in an email. So they developed this fabulous free plugin for your computer that takes seconds to upload. It's called Just Not Sorry. And it will alert you to all these unnecessary apologies. And it will either underline it in red or highlight it. And it will also, because it's so brilliant, it will also alert you to all the minimizing phrases. And all those minimizing phrases that I just mentioned are apologies without actually having said the word. Mm-hmm. And so what they do is they plant seeds of doubt where there was no doubt to begin with in your audience.
Yep. And I think actually as you're saying that, coming to mind is I have a perfect example for you to test out right now. So this podcast right now that we are recording, as I said, it's not about running. And already in my mind, I can hear some men or some people who don't agree with this way of thinking, that you're overthinking things. And so I already, thinking about it now, after we record this, I would likely have in the past, in the introduction, said, today I'm interviewing this guest. Just want to let you know that I'm going to be interviewing this guest. This is not about running. This is about building confidence, particularly in women. I'm sorry to all the men out there for not focusing, for doing this episode. And I would apologize. And I know that's what I would do, just thinking. So yeah, tell me there, like, why would I feel a need to do that when everything is helping maybe 95%. And so I should be able to say, who cares? To that 5%, you skip on, delete this episode, go to the next one. But that part of my mind is saying, yeah, but you want to at least address those people that you're leaving out. So tell me your thoughts there.
Because we have this little part of us that wants to be liked and accepted by everybody, even though we know it's not rational, even though we know there will absolutely be 10% of people that despise us and that can't stand what we do or disagree, but just please, I just want to be liked by everybody. So there's a little bit of that people pleaser, and it's also a little bit of, but will I have let people down? Mm-hmm. Will I have let people down and they expect this from me? And now I haven't given them 100% of what they have expected. So it's about reframing how you communicate things. You believe in confidence. You think it's worthy. You think this is important. And so how can we reframe it in a way that you start the podcast and you say, I know this is a running podcast, but what I'm going to do is recognize that running doesn't exist in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. It's contextualized by all these other things that either prevent us from going out for a run, like our mindset, right? Or injuries. And so in this podcast, we're going to talk about this because I think it's so important. And I'm so excited for all the men to listen so that you can either become better allies to women, or maybe you'll learn something here and pass it on to the women in your life.
Yes. Thank you so much. And that is so important. And I'm going to set myself a challenge to actually record the intro, just as you mentioned there. Now, going back to the professionals that you mentioned at the beginning with where that kind of light bulb moment for you, for someone listening who's thinking, yeah, but doesn't that make them relatable? Degrading us, making fun of ourselves, or kind of saying, I'm grateful to be here. Isn't that making me seem like, wow, she's really humble? Tell us your thoughts on that.
So I hate the word humble so much. I loathe it with every being in my body, because let's define the word humble. Humble is having or showing a low estimate of one's own importance. Having or showing a low estimate of one's own worth. Now, why in the world would I want that for myself?
That makes sense.
Why would I want that for my daughters, my girlfriends, any woman listening, to my students? My gosh. Oh, I absolutely loathe it. But we have been socialized. Absolutely. We have been socialized into thinking that it is unfeminine, that it is unladylike to unapologetically own it. And that we should be so highly attuned to everybody else's feelings and emotions at all times. And so we think, I better dim my light. I better play a little bit smaller, just in case I hurt somebody else's feelings. Heaven forbid my accomplishments, my acknowledgments of my own greatness should make others feel badly about themselves.
Thank you to Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode of the Running for Real podcast. Athletic Greens is the ultimate daily all-in-one supplement with 75 vitamins, minerals, whole food source ingredients that work together to help the body absorb and synthesize these nutrients in a highly bioavailable form. It was initially developed for athletes and high performers, but it has since kind of grown in popularity amongst everyone, and you guys are seeing why. I love hearing about how much you are enjoying Athletic Greens, And they have such a high retention rate. Very few people cancel once they are subscribed to get this product every month because it works. Honestly, I get a little panicky when I'm in towards the end of my packet of Athletic Greens because I just can't imagine not having it there in my daily life. So I get a bit worried until the next subscription arrives. I actually honestly asked them for a few months in advance just so I could take that part of the stress away from me. But that's how much I believe in this product. I also gave some to my mailman I gave a month's worth to my mailman during the height of the kind of quarantine lockdown situation because I was just worried about him and I knew how much he was at risk. If I could give this to all of you, I would. I could not believe in a product and what it does for our just general health more than I believe in Athletic Greens. It boosts our energy. It gives you mental clarity. It supports your immune system. It stimulates your digestion, supports gut health. It makes changes in your skin, your hair, your nails. And I said 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients. That is the antioxidant equivalent of 12 servings of fruits and vegetables to start off your day. So I know I'm always getting those important, hard to find nutrients that I am honestly not getting in my daily life. I haven't fallen sick in a while, and I really pride that to Athletic Greens. I cannot be more excited about it, in case you couldn't tell. Now, you can get 20 servings of Athletic Greens for free by going to athleticgreens.com/Tina. That's athleticgreens.com/Tina to get 20 free servings valued at $79 with your first order. Do not wait. Go check it out. You will not regret it.
And so we think, I better dim my light. I better play a little bit smaller just in case I hurt somebody else's feelings. Heaven forbid my accomplishments, my acknowledgments of my own greatness should make others feel badly about themselves. And so what does that teach us? What are we teaching our own girls? And it's really this gendered notion around humbleness. And I think that it creates a barrier because humbleness serves us well on the playground at recess, but it doesn't work so well for us as we grow up, right? There are very real consequences, but it's that hypersensitivity, right? That our accomplishments, our experience, our education, what we are proud of could make others feel badly about themselves. And then so we take on that burden of how other people feel. And that is an enormous weight to carry year after year after year. And so humbleness is very closely aligned to another concept called feminine modesty. Feminine modesty is the tendency to underrepresent our accomplishments. So what I saw in that academic conference 5 years ago was feminine modesty, was humbleness, and was gendered expectations around confidence. When we think of what is confidence, oftentimes we think confidence sounds like and looks like a man. And then when a woman speaks or behaves in ways that are traditionally masculine, she is perceived in vastly different and negative ways. I mean, and then we could get into a whole discussion on unconscious gender bias.
Yeah, we can save that towards the end. I just there's some other things I think are relevant to the audience before we get to that. But yes, I would love to get to that if we have some time. So feminine modesty and humbleness, that all ties into the fact that the word selfless for a woman is seen as kind of the ultimate compliment, that she's so selfless. She just thinks of others. And I've definitely guilty of this as well. I want to be known as the person who gives and the person who puts her family first. And I've always said that. But why is that maybe not as good as it seems to someone listening who has kind of always strived to hear that word of, oh, she's so selfless?
So I think that there is a difference between being kind and polite and compassionate and selfless, if you will, at one end, and then at the other end, narcissistic or a bitch or aggressive. And so women feel that if they are not in that one category of selfless, then they will be immediately perceived as the opposite, which is very harsh, egotistic, narcissistic, conceited, bitchy. Now, I would question the value of selflessness. I think that it is okay to be selfish, if you will. I think that we have to take care of ourselves. I am a huge believer in self-care first. And I've just spent the last 6 months, and I'm only 6 months into the study, but I've interviewed over 100 women across the world now. 11 countries have participated in this study on confidence. I've spent over 400 hours interviewing women. And I can tell you that the ones that wear the mantle of selflessness feel broken and exhausted and drained and are wondering, when is it my time? When can I fill my cup up? Why do I feel guilty? When does that go away? And then you look around and we get all these signs from our peer group and our family and our culture and our religion that keep that idea fresh in our mind, that it's important for women to be selfless. And I'll give you an example, just in something as small as letters of reference. Women are 50% more likely to have letters of reference that use the words kind, helpful, compassionate. And men are more likely to have words used to describe them in leadership capabilities.
So what would be some examples of those words that you would see?
Authoritative, decisive, determined, focused. And so one seems very helpful, lovely, selfless. She probably bakes stuff for the office, right?
Yep.
Because she's lovely. And then here's another person, a go-getter. Ooh, determined, focused. Ooh, I like that. Who do you want to be your boss? Who's the one more likely to get hired?
Yep.
Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't strive to be kind. I mean, for me, I hope that we strive to be more self-compassionate, which is acknowledging the need for self-kindness rather than self-judgment. I think selflessness leads, and that yearning or that idea that it's an important thing that women should strive for, I think that can lead towards self-judgment. Yeah. And then that gets us down a slippery slope of never feeling like we're good enough.
Yep. So let's talk about that then. Many listeners, many women out there who are not confident will feel, they can say, okay, I'm not a confident person. And many people listening, runners, you would think runners would be so proud of their bodies and who they are because they get out there and do something that most people consider a punishment. And the fact that they're able to go out and run for 30 minutes, an hour, without stopping should be something to be really proud of and say, wow, my body is strong. Instead, we look for things we don't like. We berate our bodies. We kind of say, I'm not good enough. Or even, with times you said 150, that's pretty good, which obviously is what we should strive to say. In fact, most people would say, I'm not that good. I'm just a X, even regardless of what level it is. And I've even done that, I don't know if you know this, but I wasn't a professional runner and I would still do it. Even at my, even though I was in the top 1% of people, I would still do it. So tell us about, confidence. If someone doesn't feel that they are confident in themselves, like what can they do? Where can they start?
Recognizing that confidence is a muscle that strengthens with use. Confidence is not a feeling. It is an action first. So you have to put forth the work first. You feel confident second. So confidence is something that you build. And you build upon that in order to maintain it. So you have to look at, what am I doing that is undermining my confidence? Am I doing anything that is sabotaging my own confidence? And that question usually leads us to ruminating, dwelling, worrying. How often am I spending more time thinking about all the ways that I didn't measure up and all those times that something was not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And closely aligned to that is discounting the positive. I think so many of us, honestly, are Olympians at discounting the positive that happens in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so in anything that happens, an event, an occurrence, you've achieved something, instead of saying, yes, that's amazing. Look at what you did. You did this. We say, but look at this. Look at this 5%. Look at that 10% that didn't work out. Then perhaps nobody noticed, but now we bring it to everybody's attention because we want to get there first before other people get there.
Mm-hmm.
So it's so intimately linked to feelings of being an imposter, never fully measuring up, thinking that at any given time, somebody's going to swoop in and take that medal from you and say, oh, no, you didn't qualify. Or they're going to take that promotion or take that accolade from you and say, no, you're really a fraud. You don't belong here. And so those feelings of never measuring up or being good enough or smart enough or brave enough it's also intertwined. Perfectionism, imposter syndrome, people pleasing, and then a lack of self-compassion. So they're all tied in to our confidence.
Mm-hmm.
Mentioned earlier, the negative critic, that voice in our head. That really is one of the number one things that we can do to be aware of. So most people use a really negative talk in order to inspire change. And I can tell you that there's not one single study that shows talking is useful for yourself. There is not one single study that shows being negative and harsh on yourself, in fact, inspires change or motivates you to change a habit. It doesn't. So if we think about how we treat somebody else who is struggling, who has messed up, think about how you would speak to them. Okay, so I'll ask you this. Think about that yourself. You're helping somebody who has struggled with something. What tone of voice are you using with them? What words? What's your posture like? What are you saying to them? So what do you think? How would you answer that?
Well, be a kind of forgiving and understanding tone, kind of a leaned in, as in, I support you. I'm here for you. I'm not going to back away. You didn't, I don't think you're a bad person that needs to be kind of leaned away from. And yeah, you're just going to say words that will help build that person back up and show them that, yeah, okay, maybe you did make a mistake or maybe things weren't perfect, but you still did whatever. You still accomplished this, or you still deserve to be celebrated for whatever reason it is.
Absolutely. So you're showing that person kindness, compassion, patience, empathy. You're probably even, if you're close to each other, maybe you would rub their back, hold their hand, hug them. Now think about what we say to ourselves when we've messed up. I mean, it's bonkers. Can you imagine if you said to somebody who was running and they didn't do well at a race and you said to them, oh my gosh, you're such a loser. Yeah. You couldn't even do that time. Everybody knew you were awful. Everybody knew you suck. I mean, we'd have no friends, right? No. But yes, literally that is what we play on our heads, in our minds, on an endless loop every time we haven't done something perfectly. That expectation of perfection leads to paralysis. We have to aim for completion, not perfection. Yeah. I did the race. I completed it. I showed up. Even if I crawled across the finish line, I did it. Maybe I vomited right after I crossed that finish line, but I did it.
Yep.
Right? But the perfectionist, the one who's thinking, no, it's either going to be all or nothing. Either you're a total success or you're an utter failure. That's when we start getting reminded, oh, yes, that didn't work out and that didn't work out and I didn't do well there. So this is all a long-winded way of getting back to your original question, which was, how do we then increase our confidence? So I'll tell you, all the women that I'm speaking to, some have no confidence. Some had confidence, but they lost it and now they've gained it back. Some have always had great confidence. So when I ask them, what do you do to strengthen your confidence? What do you do now to maintain confidence? Nobody says, I don't know, I just kind of hope for it or wish for it. I hope I wake up one day feeling good and confident. No, the ones that have it, they will give me a litany of things that they do every single day to be confident. Some of them are, I journal.
Mm-hmm.
I have a gratitude journal.
Mm-hmm.
I spend time in nature every single day. I remind myself of the good. Some, what they do is they have a worry dump. A worry dump is a recognition that you will ruminate and dwell for a set period of time. And so let's say, okay, today's Friday. I'm going to ruminate at noon, and I'm going to give myself 1 hour to remind myself of all the crappy things that have happened and I haven't done. And I'm going to hypothesize all the future cases that could possibly go wrong. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to get it all out. And then at 1 o'clock, you set that timer, 1 hour, done. That's it. You can't ruminate again until that next scheduled time. So the goal with these worry dumps is that you can eventually get to the point where you're not doing it daily. Maybe it's happening 3 times a week. Maybe it's happening once a week. And then maybe you can switch it when it starts happening in your mind. Mm-hmm. And you can start acknowledging all the other good things.
Yes.
And another thing that they do, and that has a lot of research to back it up, is that they remind themselves, they try to be more self-compassionate. So for anybody that wants to know more about self-compassion, you got to look up anything by Dr. Kristen Neff. She is the leading self-compassion researcher out of Texas, and she does phenomenal work. And so it's about recognizing self-compassion. I'll give you like a quick definition of it. Self-compassion has 3 components. It's about self-kindness instead of self-judgment. Mm-hmm. It's about common humanity. And common humanity is recognizing we're all in this together. We're all vulnerable. We've all messed up, right? We're not as isolated as we think. And then the third component is mindfulness. And so mindfulness will help interrupt the ruminating cycle. If you can remind yourself to be grounded in that moment, right? It helps to interrupt that negative voice in your head. And so learning how to be self-compassionate increases your confidence. And there's a few different techniques for that, whether you're doing a gratitude journal or you're reminding yourself of all the good things that you have done. So I'll give you an example. In my study, I ask women, give me a list, and maybe your listeners can do this themselves too. Give me a list of 10 things that you have done in your life that you are proud of. That list should be like this. Mm-hmm. It should be quick. Mm-hmm. You should know all the stuff that you've done that you are proud of. Big things, small things, little wins, big wins, stuff that happened last week, stuff that happened 20 years ago, barriers that you have overcome. But when I ask women that, the first thing that they do is they pause and they say, 10. 10? You want 10 things? Oh my gosh. Okay, this is going to take too long. Oh my gosh. I don't know. And then they come up with 3 or 4, and then they say, I don't know. I can't think of any. Why? Because they're thinking, is this thing good enough?
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. So what that shows us is that we do not often remind ourselves of our own greatness. We need to catalog our achievements on a regular basis. And I don't mean you broke a world record in running. I mean smaller things that we need to remind ourselves of, all the progress, all those little baby steps that we made along the way in order to achieve that one big, great thing. But before that one big, great thing was 20 small things. And if we don't remind ourselves of these, what happens is it takes the joy out of all of it, because then we just keep moving the benchmark saying, next, what's next?
Yep. So true. And I think so many of these things that you're mentioning are going to relate to people listening. I've heard them say these things, and thank you. This is just solid gold. And one question I did have that people may be wondering is, the second point of self-compassion there you mentioned was we're kind of in this together. We all go through this. What's the difference there between, we're all in this together, and again, going back to those professionals kind of saying, I can't believe that I'm here. Someone listening might say, well, listening to that talk might say, yeah, that's what I would be feeling. Or like, oh, they get nervous too. What's the difference between that saying like, we're all in this together, we all get nervous, we all are overwhelmed here, and being all together in the context you're talking within self-compassion?
So the difference was that there was a complete detachment from their accomplishments. So they were simultaneously acknowledging perhaps that they were nervous at the same time that they were dismissing themselves. So it's almost that self-deprecating humor that we use as a deflection. We use it because we are sometimes uncomfortable when we get praised in public, or we're being introduced in that way, or we feel like we don't want to be perceived in a cocky way. But there's a difference. There's a difference when you can't internalize and own your achievements. It leads to this cycle of constantly feeling like we're not good enough, rather than saying, and I would also caution against starting any speech with, I'm so nervous, because then you're again bringing awareness to something that nobody in the room had awareness of.
Friends, you've probably heard me saying over the past few months that I am currently taking 3 months off from working while I enjoy time with my new baby. Now, please make sure I stick to this. If you see me doing things work online, that is time for you to get in touch with me, say, hey, what are you doing online? Now, I will let you know my assistant, Amber, is going to be taking over some things for me. Some things I have prepared ahead of time. But if you notice that it seems to be very real time, please let me know, because I promised myself I would take 3 months off, and I need to be able to stick to that. Now, that being said, there is one thing that I am continuing to do during this time. Not these podcasts. These podcasts were recorded ahead of time. You've got these interviews to enjoy. There will not be a break in episodes during this time. And I'm really thankful for guest host Sarah Crouch for taking over some of those. But the one thing that I am going to be doing during this time is writing my email newsletters on a Monday. Now, there's over 7,000 of you already signed up for these emails. I know you love them. I love seeing your replies come in every week. And you can sign up at tinamuir.com/subscriber. That's tinamuir.com/subscriber. All it is kind of an update, something I'm thinking about for the week, something that I'm appreciating, and it really makes you think. I love that I have the ability to get into people's heads and really make a difference. And then at the bottom, I give some things I'm enjoying, some updates, just some things that you may have missed throughout the week that I would have shared. And it's just something that's very kind of friend to friend. It just feels like I'm emailing you just to kind of let you know my updates. And I would love for you to be a part of the 7,000 other runners who are on this list. You can go to tinamuir.com/subscriber. That's tinamuir.com/subscriber to sign up, and I will see you every Monday.
And I would also caution against starting any speech with, I'm so nervous, because then you're again bringing awareness to something that nobody in the room had awareness of.
But wouldn't the people listening be like, oh, she gets nervous too?
It's a gendered communication style that we use as if to say, I'm nervous, so forgive me for mistakes that are about to happen, because I know I'm going to make a mistake, because maybe I'm not really qualified to be up here, because maybe I should have practiced, and then you know, and then those thoughts just keep going on and on and on.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks for explaining that. And sorry to keep hammering that in there. There, I just did it again. But at least I caught it straight afterwards.
Yes.
See, that's an improvement. Okay, so let's switch to parents listening. I want to primarily focus on, raising young girls, which you have a young daughter yourself. But there's also, for people listening who don't have children, don't have a young girl, there's still people in your life, nieces, family, friends, even, I've said walking through Target and a little girl hears you talking. We've all got someone that is looking up to us in some way, even if it's just for a few seconds. So how can we raise little girls, young girls to grow up in a world where they are not apologizing so much, especially as the audience is hopefully transitioning out of this apologies time, but it's going to take a while. It's not going to happen overnight. So how can we raise little girls who have more confidence And especially, the world that we grew up in is so different to the world that the young girls are growing up in now, with social media and internet being such a prominent part of life. So tell us some thoughts on raising or, being a good role model to young girls coming up.
I have a few tips. One is we have to destigmatize failure. So failure is not seen in a negative way in my household. So right off the bat, I am very open with my own daughter, who's 7, about the mistakes that I make on a regular basis and the mistakes that she makes. And so every single day we try to have a conversation around mistakes. And I'll say, what did you mess up on at school today? And at first she was like, I don't know. Did the teacher tell you something? Thinking that she was in trouble. And I said, no, mistakes are awesome because failure is just information. Failure is just information. And if we don't learn that lesson young, what happens is we become adults and we make a mistake and we think we are the mistake. And then it really becomes challenging for us to push ourselves out of our comfort zone and take a risk. Because if failure is an option and that's something that you're running away from, you're always going to stay in your comfort zone. Mm-hmm. So that's one thing that we talk about is mistakes and having a growth mindset. Having a growth mindset is so important. So that is being very conscious of the words that we use. So I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to do this yet. Mm-hmm. So having that inclusion of the word yet and recognizing that mistakes are useful. I also avoid very generalized praise. Like, oh, that's so good. You're so good at that. Yeah. What is that? Like, what does that mean? And how is that useful for them? How does that make them improve in any aspect? So for instance, if my daughter Ryo is drawing something, instead of me saying, you're such a good artist, I say, I love the use of color. How did you decide to use all those different colors? And you can see her just perk up like, oh my gosh, fantastic. Let me tell you about why I use purple there. Right. And if she is struggling with math, and she wants to immediately give up because she can't get it perfectly the first time, I say, oh my gosh, this is so fabulous. You're struggling. Do you know what this means? When you are struggling, it means your brain is growing. It's expanding. This is fabulous because mistakes are teaching us something. And at first, it's a real transition because they're like, wait a minute, mistakes are good. It's good for me to struggle. Yes, it's good, because if you can struggle, you realize that learning a skill takes time and practice. It's not talent. Your abilities as a runner have less than 10% to do with ingrained talent or the body that you were born with, right? That other 90% has to do with your training and your work ethic and you putting in the mileage and learning, right, from the mistakes and the runs that didn't go well. And so I really, really dislike when I hear people say, oh, she's so good. She's such a good artist. She's so good at this. Let's praise the effort, not the person.
Yeah. So important. And, I just want to, for someone listening who is hearing that and saying that they do it too. And I can hear myself saying it, my daughter might say, her toy Owie hurt himself, and then she'll pick him up and say, he's sad, I'm cuddling him. And my daughter's 2. So, obviously a little bit further behind Ryo in development wise, but it's hard for me not to say, oh, you're so sweet, or what a kind little girl. Give some examples, because that's, kind of a common thing that someone might say. What other things could we say instead? Just give us some more examples. You said about the artist example, but maybe some other examples. Instead of saying you're kind, you're a good girl, you're, I don't know, whatever words we use just out of habit.
Yeah. So it's connecting the action that they're doing. So when your daughter is holding it was an owl?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, look how you are showing kindness. Look at all the ways. Let's talk about how you're, and I mean, as a researcher, right, I probably ad nauseam talk to my daughter where she's like, okay, I didn't need the whole background story on this, right? Mama, just zip it up and keep it moving. But you could just it's like planting little seeds, right? And it may not come to fruition for a few years. So it's saying, I can see that you are showing your owl kindness. Do you know how I can tell that? And then she'll probably say, how? And I can say, you're holding him gently. You're stroking. That's a sign. You know how mama makes you feel better when I hug you and you have an owie? That's very kind. And then maybe you can even get into a discussion. That's what mama birds do with their baby birds. And that's how they show kindness. I cringe when I hear my daughter get complimented on her looks.
Yeah.
Or, like that's just gross. Because I don't know what precedent that is setting. What do they do with that information? Right. I'd rather hear people say and it comes down to people sometimes don't know how to communicate. They don't know what to say. They've just heard for eons. You're so pretty. You're so cute. And they think, well, that's just a lovely thing to say.
Yeah, like I'm giving them love. Yeah. I'm showing love. Yeah.
Why not ask them a question? What is the most exciting thing you have done today? Or just random stuff. Tell me your third favorite color. Oh, my third favorite color is purple, but then that will lead to my second favorite color and my first. And then all of a sudden you've had a really cute conversation rather than something on appearance.
So just one more thing related to that. Like, how is, for someone who's thinking, yeah, but I want to show them that they're loved. I want to show them that they're special and that they're appreciated. Like, we all, I don't know if you've read the book Untamed by Glennon Doyle.
I haven't yet, but I'm looking forward to reading it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm almost finished with it. And, she talks a lot about following our own hearts. And even if it like hurts your child in the process, for her, it was getting a divorce and her children's experience of watching her fall in love with a woman. It's so tempting for us to just like shield our kids, to just kind of want to wrap them up and say like, I love you, sweet girl, and kind of protect them from everything and anything and just shower them with love. In your experience, like, or what you've researched, why is that maybe not the best approach? And how is that different to kind of, as you said, how is asking them questions or describing what you see, how is that going to give them the same love that telling them you love them and using sweet words to them is going to have?
So what happens when they encounter somebody who doesn't whisper sweet nothings in their ear? What happens that first time when somebody is harsh or mean to them? Have I instilled in my daughter the building blocks and the internal wherewithal to deal with that? That's really my job. I show her love through my physical attention, by being there for her, by reading to her, by doing all these things with her. But my job that she sometimes doesn't like is by being there with her to work through these difficult things so that she knows the next time a hurdle comes, she can do it. And so I'll give you the example of just doing her math booklets in the morning and reading with her. She didn't want to do it. She felt like others were better readers than her. So she did. She was crying. She didn't want to do it. She kept saying, I can't do it. I can't do it. It was my job to be there to show her, you can't do it yet. It's going to take all these books, all these 10 books here for you to get to that next level of reading. And I'm going to be here every step of the way. And it's not going to be fun sometimes. And it's going to be difficult. But it's those moments of difficulty that stretch and grow us. And so when she has done that, it's remarkable because she is jumping up to that next reading level. And then what I do is I bring all those books that she read and I said, let's count them. Look, you read this one and this one and this one, and you had to read all 15. How many times did you read those 15 books? And now you have gone to the next reading level. And so every time she has achieved something, I remind her of what she did in order to achieve it. It wasn't just like, good job, you're amazing. It's, oh my gosh, Ryo, let's go over all the steps you had to take. Because if we don't do that, then they think, well, my mom told me I was such a good soccer player. I was such a good artist growing up. And now I can't do it like this. I can't do it automatically. So if I can't do it automatically, I must not be good at it.
Yes.
So then if I'm not good at it, that means I'm not going to try again.
Yes. Thank you so much. And one question related to that, how do we get over the guilt of, what if I'm screwing them up for life? Like I see the hurt in their face. What if they remember that for the rest of their life because I'm not, just running over and solving things for them?
I heard this quote from Ariana Huffington, and she said, when she gave birth, they took the baby out and they injected her with guilt.
Yeah.
And it's been a lifelong process of undoing that guilt. It's about also recognizing that I'm not responsible for every emotion that she has, and I cannot anticipate every possible pitfall that she will encounter in her life.
Mm-hmm.
And so dismantling that idea around perfect mothering and the super mother who will cook all the dinners by scratch and who will just do everything perfectly and do it all and come up with these beautifully intricate lunches, and who will be a nutritionist and a doctor and a therapist and their best friend. And I mean, it's exhausting. We cannot do it all. Mm-hmm. And so I came across this thing on Instagram, and it said, not every day is good, but there's good in every day.
Yep.
And I think about that with her because every night we do a gratitude journal together, and it takes 2 minutes, but I started doing this probably, she's 7.5. I think I started when she was 6, and some nights, we didn't do it, but it's okay. So we list, what are you grateful for today? And she can list as many as she wants, and name one awesome, exciting thing that happened today, right? One thing that you learned. And then there's all these little emojis, and she has to circle her mood.
I love
right?
that. Yeah.
And so I think that I have curated the best day for her. Certainly in these homeschooling moments of COVID-19, I have done everything. I've structured. The day is going to be amazing. I know she's going to circle that top emoji, that like super excited emoji. And she circles the emoji halfway down that was like just like a little smiley face. And I was like, what? What do you mean? The day was amazing. And she was like, yeah, it was great. I had a good day. And I thought, oh, yes, I've expected her to be on this total high every single day. Right.
Yep.
So I think doing that gratitude journal at the end of the day helps ground both of us, because we both talk about all the little things that went well. And, oh yeah, remember I did cry. I cried over this, and then that didn't work out well. And we're both like, but it was overall, there was some good in the day.
Yes. So, and that's also good because that's showing that even you still have to kind of remind yourself and snap yourself out of these desires to be perfect, the perfect mother, because it's just so ingrained in us that even someone like you who's done all these years still has to work at it sometimes. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And just, okay, to wrap up here, last question. So what about someone who isn't a parent, but they know their friendship group? They have these friends they've known for a long time. They love them. They care about them, but they're very degrading. There's a lot of like self-deprecating talk. There's a lot of lack of confidence. I don't like this about myself. I don't like that. Just a lot of like frustration underneath, or even, family members. What should someone do there if they're trying really hard to change their life and be confident and to build this life that they want to live, but everyone around them is kind of keeps pulling them back into that lifestyle?
Okay. So along with getting off the apology train is also about interrupting negative self-talk amongst our colleagues and our friends. And so everywhere I go, I try to interrupt unnecessary apologies to random people, total strangers. As soon as I hear a random apology in the parking lot or Starbucks, I'll like scooch on over and I'll be like, that's so interesting that you just apologized for that. Guess what I study for a living? And then we get into this really great conversation about why did they just apologize? So as often as I do that, and I encourage your listeners to start interrupting not only their own apologies, but the unnecessary apologies from other women that they hear, I would also encourage all of us to have those deeper conversations and to start interrupting self-deprecating talk, self-deprecating humor. When we didn't get a chance to talk about this earlier, but how we handle compliments and praise, so that the next time you hear somebody and they get complimented on something, and if they push it away, let's interrupt that. So for instance, the last workshop I gave before the lockdown happened, was for 60 business owners, 60 women business owners. And I said to them, give me an example of how you deflected praise. And so one woman said, and she was a hairdresser, she said, well, I just got complimented on my hair the other day. And I said, oh my gosh, no, my hair looks so gross. I haven't washed it in 3 days. It's all dry shampoo. What? You don't have to tell people that. Like, what is going on? But that is what we do. Yeah. Heaven forbid the spotlight shine on us. And so this is exactly what's coming out in the research, that we respond to compliments. I mean, can you imagine? This is how we respond to a genuine compliment, either on our appearance or a job well done at work. We use several tactics. One is we dismiss it. Oh, it was nothing. Mm-hmm. Oh, anybody could have done this. It was just good luck. It was timing, right? Or we use self-deprecating humor. Oh my gosh, no, I look disgusting today. What do you mean? Mm-hmm. Right? Or we provide a unnecessary description of why we are not worthy or why we look so gross. Oh my gosh, I haven't washed my hair in 3 days. Oh my gosh, no, I have no idea how I got this promotion. I'm totally going to get fired. I have no idea what I'm doing. And now we're like, oh, okay, maybe you really shouldn't have been hired for that position. Or we feel the need to like compliment the person right back.
Yeah, I was hope you brought that up, because I definitely feel like that's one of mine.
Yes, because we're like, oh no, you look good. Yeah. And that when you're giving that an automatic compliment right back, it's not perceived as genuine.
Yeah.
It absolutely
I love
isn't.
your shirt. Oh, I love your shirt. Like it just you're like okay. Yeah.
So we have to start getting comfortable with simply saying thank you. Mm-hmm. So when you get complimented on anything, your appearance, your job well done at work, consider saying thank you and nothing else. Zip it. Yep. And just let that silence be there after that compliment. Or you could say, thank you so much for noticing. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. This is one of my favorite tops. Thank you. Yep. And then we can just leave it. And so women get really sort of anxious around this idea of simply owning it, just saying thank you. And it is a skill that takes practice. And the more confident you become, the easier it is. But you have to practice it first, right? So the first 10 times you say thank you and you don't make fun of yourself, it's going to feel a little weird. And how about when you get complimented for a job well done at work? What's the most common thing women say?
It was all the team.
Yes. It was the team. Oh my goodness. I couldn't have done it. Little old me. Oh no. It was all these other people. Mm-hmm. And immediately when I say that to women, I can feel the energy changing in the room. And they're like, Maja, come on. We have to be collegial. We work in groups. It's a team. And I'm like, I know that. I know it takes a village, but why can't you acknowledge your own worth? Why are you so uncomfortable with taking ownership of the role that you played in that success? Mm-hmm. So perhaps just 10% of the time, consider saying thank you.
Yep.
For the job that you did at work. And then the other 90%, externalize it. Sure. But just
make some improvement. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. And then just to go back to that was so helpful. I really, really appreciate you sharing that. To go back to the original question you said about interrupting immediately. I would say I'm kind of further along in this journey than many people listening would be, because I've been aware of this for many years now. But the idea of interrupting, like you can obviously say, well, I'm a sociologist. I study this. That gives you a kind of excuse, but people would think, I'm not saying that. Like they'll be like, excuse me? Like, why are you, you can't tell me, what to think, or they think they're rude, or there's no easy way to interrupt someone and make them feel awkward by saying something about it. So any last minute advice for that? Like if they don't know how to interrupt or don't know how to kind of stop it, because people will be like, oh, what are you, some like self-help guru now, or something like that?
So that's where we come back to that definition of self-compassion, and that's that common humanity. So recognizing yourself in those comments, recognizing that probably you've been there too, where you have self-deprecated. Mm-hmm. And this is a tool to help women. This is not a tool to bash them. And so I think women know how to approach these conversations because we have enough of that empathy when we're dealing with people who are struggling with something. So I also try to interject with humor. So I'll say, that is so interesting that you just blew away or pushed past that compliment. Why? I do the same thing. Why is that? Why can't we accept a compliment? So putting yourself into that conversation, not just like, why are you doing this? But why are we? I hear, or saying, this is so common. My mom, my sister, my friends, and all of us do this. Why? Why can't we just say thank you? Why do you think we push away compliments? And I think that you'll start to have deeper conversations. I know so many women have messaged me afterwards and said, we are interrupting deflections of praise. So I gave this talk to a bank, and there was, 500 or 600 people at the talk, and then a few hundred people listening remotely. And then within like 2 hours, I started getting all these emails, and they're like, I just interrupted a deflection of praise. We just had a conversation in the lunchroom about it. This is amazing. And that's really, it's like a domino effect.
Yeah.
Because once you hear it, you can't unhear it.
Yep, for sure. I would definitely agree. Thank you so much. This is so helpful. And okay, so I'd love for you to tell us a bit about the book, about where people can find you and follow you, and absolutely recommend that you soak in all the wisdom you can. Go watch Professor Maja's TED Talk. Where can we find you?
Sure. So you can find me at Professor Maja, and that is Maja. So if you can go to my website, professormaja.com, and that's how you can find out about all my virtual talks, or you can watch my TEDx. You can see my books there. My books are available on Amazon. And if you want to participate in the study, for any women who are looking at participating in my study, they can go to the website and click on research, and all the information is there. You can email me. So the study is done via the phone, right? Skype, Zoom, or a phone call. I work around women's schedule. We usually talk in blocks of 1 hour. It takes a few phone calls to finish the study. We talk about confidence. We talk about apologies. We talk about deflection of praise. And then we talk about how you handle success and failure, ruminating, and that sort of thing. Right. Yeah. So the TEDx is called How Apologies Kill Our Confidence. And the book is called Hey Ladies, Stop Apologizing.
Yes. Thank you so much. I will put lots of links in the show notes for everyone to go listen, and check the show notes, because I may work with Professor Maja on some kind of printout for you to go use with some of the things we talked about today. So be sure you go to the show notes to check that out. And thank you so much for your wisdom today. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. This has been fantastic. Thank you so much.
My friends, if you have a minute and you could leave a review on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, or whatever else podcast player you use to listen to this podcast, or if you would subscribe to this podcast, you will help me get out in front of new runners to make our tribe even bigger and even better. It might not seem like you as one person can make a difference, but really it helps a lot. And it shows me you appreciate the hard work I put in for those. Thank you so much. Powerful stuff, right? I love her message. I love what she says to us. It is a great reminder to us to just change the way that we talk to ourselves, change the way that we put ourselves across. And it's not going to take that much effort to really make a difference in your life. I have noticed a massive improvement since I've first heard of Professor Maja, and I think you will too. Now, that being said, Professor Maja has been kind enough to create a 3-page PDF document which explains the things she talked about today. It's something you can pin up on your wall to remind yourself of this conversation, to remind yourself of things that you want to change. And I would love for you to be someone who goes to get that. And you can get that in the show notes at tinamuir.com/episode 195. So if you go to that link, you will be able to get a direct access to that PDF. But you can also go to tinamuir.com/Maja, MAJA. That's tinamuir.com/Maja. And that will take you directly to the page where you can go get that PDF. It just matches her personality so well with what she's put in there. It's bright, it's to the point, it's got really important information in there, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. So I want to take another moment to thank Tracksmith and Athletic Greens for sponsoring this episode. you can go to tracksmith.com/Tina Muir and use code Tina to get 15% off your first order at Tracksmith. You can also get 20 servings of athletic greens for free by going to athleticgreens.com/Tina, and you'll get that with your first month. Now, my friends, as I said, we are coming up on the final episodes that I have recorded ahead of time. You have the last one that I have done myself. Is that right? Yes. I'm just checking my notes here. You have the last one that I've done as myself next week, which is with Alafine Toulamuk, the winner of the US Marathon Trials 2020, and just the most beautiful soul. She is the nicest, kindest, wonderful person. And if you haven't already heard her talk on other shows, you will certainly love her after this one. But this one, we went deep. We went in different directions to what the other podcasts have done with her. I really enjoyed it. I think you're going to love her too. And there is a reason this woman is getting all the buzz for just being such a genuine, great human being. So be sure to subscribe if you have not already, and go listen to that episode with Alafine Toulamuk next weekend. And then we will be on to another episode from Sarah Crouch, which is another one she has recorded while I am away. So friends, I hope you have a wonderful week. Be kind to one another, be kind to this planet that we live on, and have a great week.
Thanks for listening to the Running for Real podcast. Be sure to check out tinamuir.com for show notes and even more helpful running information.